Hello and welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei and I'm so excited to paint with you again today. We are going to do another full page of 6 different watercolor hand-painted gift tags for the Christmas and holiday season. We did these 6 for our last video, and now we're going to flip it over and do another 6 on this side. So we'll have 12 altogether to choose from, and I hope these provide you a little bit of inspiration for those of you who are doing some kind of handmade gift tags or cards. These could be used in lots of different ways, and they don't have to be used exactly as I created them. They could be used as inspiration to create something a little bit different, combine different elements for yourself as well. All right, so let's get started. I'm painting in my I'm painting in my Bao Hong watercolor sketchbook. This is a 6x9 size, and I've divided it up into 3x3 squares with pencil. Hopefully you can see that there. I'm using Velvet Touch brushes today. I have my size 6 and size 4. I'll probably bring in, here it is. I have a Princeton Select 2-0 script liner brush. I also have my Core palette, QOR by Golden. These are my preferred paints and the ones I use pretty regularly. Whatever brand you have will work great. And then, of course, I have water, I have a pencil, I have a kneaded eraser. Highly recommend kneaded erasers. Any more information you want about supplies and materials I use, you can find links to them in the description to check them out to see what I use in this video as well as in other videos. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of a theme here. First, we're going to do one that requires a little taping, but we're going to do a Christmas tree. We're going to do some presents. We are going to do a mug with some frothy whipped cream in it and a candy cane. And we're also going to do a bear, a fox, and a deer. All right, so for my first one, I'm going to do a tree, but I am going to tape out a triangle because I want this one to be, you'll see, a little bit more free-flowing. So this is going to be a tree shape. So we're just taping out a triangle here. I want to leave a little room on the bottom for my trunk. So under the tape is where the trunk will go. So for this one, really, really simple. We used a lot of red over here. I'm going to try to use a little bit more green on this side. I am going to do a combination of greens and blues in my tree. And we're going to do very loose and free flowing. I'm just going to make vertical or horizontal kind of stripes with different colors. So I'm going to pick out, let's see, we're going to do sap green. I also have phthalo blue. I have a green gold, which is a very yellow-ish green. And I'm trying to decide if I'm going to put a warm blue mixed in there. Let's actually pick up some of this yellow. So I have a Diarylide yellow, which is also, it's just a warm yellow, a gamboge yellow. And I'm going to mix it with my phthalo blue to make another more blue-green color. So there we go. We have a nice quad of lots of different greens and then a very greenish blue color. So kind of in the same family. All right. So all I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to start with my lightest color. And I'm just going to go back and forth like so. And then I'm going to take another color and I'm going to go in between those spots like so. Take another color, try to fill in those white gaps. Probably could have done this with even just 2 colors, letting them mix and mingle. I'm going to go back with my, I'm going to take some pure yellow actually and mix it in there, I've decided. I think the trick with this and getting kind of the look and feel that I want, especially because it's in a really small space, is not blending too much. All right, I'm going to go in with some straight blue just to give this a little more contrast in color. It's going to mix. All right, and now I'm just going to let that dry. I'm just going to fill in these white little spots at the edges. I'm actually going to lift a little color here. And a little color here. And just drop in a little yellow. There. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. Super simple, super easy. And then we're going to come back. Once it's dry, we'll take the tape off, put a little a trunk on it, and then maybe perhaps put a little bleed-proof white on it for some white lights, but we'll see. Okay, so that's our tree. Let's move on to our mug. This one is more complicated in that it takes a little drawing. So I'm going to draw just a standard kind of cappuccino type coffee mug, kind of a rounded bowl at the bottom. We have our top. I'm just going to go around the edges just a little bit because this is going to be, I'm just going to make a little pile of whipped cream on top. We'll put shadows in it to make it more frothy looking. Excuse me. I'm going to put a little handle on. We'll come in with the eraser in a minute. And then I'm also going to put just a little candy cane sticking out the side. I just have to go really slow with my candy cane. Otherwise, I end up making the top like really thick and it's just wrong or off. Okay, so there's our little mug. You could give it a saucer. I'm not going to give it a saucer. I am going to lighten this up a little bit. I think we're going to make the mug itself green. Trying to stick with more cool colors a little bit just to give some variety. All right. But I don't want sap green. I want something more like this green. So I'm going to add a little, I'm just going to pick up my slightly larger brush, a little phthalo blue and add it to my sap green. I'm going to get this beautiful, rich, kind of jewel-toned green, emerald. All right, so I'm going to first start with just the mug itself. And you could paint this super flat if you wanted, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to add a little water. Blend this out. You could give it a light source on one side. Just going to fix the shape of this a little bit. It's a little wonky. You could put a highlight in the middle by just putting darker paint all around the edges. And I'm going to paint my handle. Switch to my smaller brush for this small little area. So you saw I just dabbed my my brush on my paper towel. So when I feel like I'm working with too much water and there's too much water still in my brush, I just dab it on my paper towel and it just pulls out excess paint and water. Doesn't dry it off completely when you do it that way. Just starts to pull it out, pull it out, pull it out. And then you still have some to work with and you just keep doing that until you kind of find the right consistency. And I'm just going to put a little darker green like where they meet. And after that dries, I'm definitely going to put something on the inside of the handle as like a shadow. All right, so there's our mug. Now we're going to do, I think I'm actually going to do the candy cane. I'm going to get some Alizarin Crimson. I'm running out of Alizarin Crimson. And I'm just going to paint on the red stripes. I'm going to leave the other part blank right now. So you can see just by the red stripes, it kind of creates the shape of the candy cane. And you could do really thin stripes or thick stripes, however you want to do it. We're going to add a little Payne's Gray at the end around one of the edges just to give it a little more form. Now for our whipped cream, I am going to use, I don't want it to be Payne's Gray. I don't want the shadows to be gray. I'm actually going to clear this spot off right here. Okay. Let me rinse off these brushes. I'm going to take, I have some raw sienna. Take some of that raw sienna. I'm going to water it way down. So it's got kind of this yellowish, but very light tan consistency. And I am going to just go around my whipped cream. And give it some texture. And then I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to come in with a darker, more gray color on top in just a few spots. And I think I'm going to put some sprinkles on it too. Yeah, we'll do that at the very end. So now that the mug is pretty dry, you can go in. I'm going to add like a shadow in the handle under here, like that. I am going to add a little bit more shadow on the side and on the bottom. Like so. Just going to blend it out. And could even do a little bit on the side here. I have this weird like blank spot right here that doesn't want to like take paint. Must have got something on the paper. Okay, so we're going to leave that the way it is. I'm going to get some Payne's Gray. We're going to ground our little mug down here by putting a little gray underneath, a little shadow. So I just put a little gray on, rinse off my brush, take it, blend it out. Even a little green is bleeding into it, which is just fine. Okay. And I did have a little green blending up or bleeding up into my whipped cream, but that's okay. I'm going to take a little bit of this gray now and just do a few little spots of texture. Definitely leaving lots of white space. And then let's do a few. I'm not going to splatter it. I'm just going to do it with a brush, I think, but that does have to be dry. So I do want to finish this before we move on. I'm going to take my heat tool. I'm just going to give it a little blast of heat. Okay, if you don't have a heat tool, but you have a blow dryer, that will work just fine. And I'm going to take some of my red sprinkles. You can use alizarin crimson. I also have a little cadmium red medium up here. I'm going to use that just to make them a little different than the candy cane red. So a few peppermint sprinkles on top there. Make them a little longer rather than circular shaped. Okay, perfect. And if you want, you can take a little Payne's Gray. I'm using my little rigger brush and I'm just going to run it along the edge of like the white part of the candy cane as a shadow. And you can blend it out. But it just gives that candy cane a little bit more shape and depth. Again, it looked fine the way it was, but just a little something extra. And last but not least, I'm going to take some of this Payne's Gray, a little darker. It's really hard to get paint with a rigger. And I'm going to run it just along the bottom, really creating that separation of the ground line and the mug. So just a tiny bit darker. Not the whole shadow, doesn't have to be this dark, just along the edge there. That really makes it pop. There we go. Okay, so let's go back to our tree. And we can pull our tape off. How cute is that little tree? And it's fun and it's loose and it was so easy to do. The hardest part was the taping, honestly. And all we have to do is take some brown. I have some raw umber here. That's a nice brown. Could do burnt umber, but I'm just going to keep it a cool color. Simple as that. Tiny little stem on our Christmas tree. And if you want to get super fun and fancy, you can use a little bleed proof white. This is Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. It is a water-based paint. It is not acrylic. It is not watercolor per se. It's kind of its own thing. But it is a water-based paint, very similar to gouache, but even a little bit more opaque, I think, than that. So I'm just going to put little white speckles randomly, I think, all over. You could do it in like a zigzaggy pattern. Just for some twinkly lights and some contrast. Cute. All right, top two are done. Let's move on. We're going to do presents over here, and then the bottom row, we're going to do our animals. We're going to do a polar bear, a fox, and a deer. Very illustrative style, so simple shapes, but I think they're going to be a lot of fun. All right, so for our presents, keep it simple. We're not going to do three-dimensional. These are going to be flat, so they're just going to be boxes. I'm going to start with my center one. My center is going to be a tall shaped box, and then I'm going to put one in front of it. It's going to be more square, right, like that. Don't worry, we'll get rid of the overlapping pencil lines. Let me just move this down here. And then we'll do another one maybe up and behind that's a little longer this way. You could even do a fifth one somewhere if you wanted to. And then I'm just going to put a ribbon on it and a bow. This one we're going to do diagonal stripes like that. Remember, this is behind, so we're going to erase that section. And this one we'll also do a vertical ribbon there with a bow on top. All right, super easy shapes, and then just play with your colors. So let's see, for this center one, this one's going to be the hardest because you have to work around the most. I'm actually going to do, let's do green and white. We'll stick with this blue-green color that I made over here. And just add a little bit more. And using my smaller brush, because we are working in these smaller spaces, I'm actually going to paint the non-stripey areas. Maybe we'll keep the stripes white. So we paint everything but the stripes. And we use the white of the page as our white. There we go. Again, you don't have to get super fancy with these. I'm just trying to keep my edges straight. It does help to have this drawn out in pencil lines so that you have square edges. So to create contrast here, I want this present to be not green. Let's do a red. Keep it traditional Christmassy colors. And then my bow and my ribbon, I could make green or I could make gold. I think I'm going to do a gold, like a yellow. Do you want to be careful when you get close to your other present if that space is still wet? And my page is very springy right now. I do have it clamped down, but it's towards the end of the book, so I have to hold it down a little bit more. I got a little funky with my shape of my ribbon at the very bottom. So red, and then for my last gift, let's do, I'm just trying to think of, I mean, I could do red again, or I could just do a, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a red ribbon on this one. And I'm going to keep the paper white, but we are going to add polka dots to it to create its shape. So the ribbon I'm literally just drawing on with my brush there. So I think I'm going to do, we could do red. Actually, we could do red stripes. That's, or you could do polka dots. Let's try polka dots. With polka dots, you do want to get right up to the edge with some of them, and I'm going to make them slightly bigger. These are going to be like bigger polka dots. And do like half circles, put one like under. So right up to the edge and let them have that flat edge. Okay, cute. I think our red is dry, so I'll go in. Oh, I said I was going to do gold. All right, so I have a Quin Gold here, which is a very orangey yellow. Giving us that goldy color. There we go. And if this one feels like it's missing something with no bow on top, I'm going to put a red bow on top to kind of tie it all together. There we go. Like a big fluffy kind of curly bow. And if you want to add a little shadow down in front of these as well, you definitely can, to just ground them in space. I drug my hand across this red polka dot over here. I'm so annoyed with myself because this was so cute. But again, it's in our sketchbook. I could go in if I really wanted to clean this up, and I could use a magic eraser and it would take this red right off of there. I'm just adding water to kind of dilute it right now. Or I could give my presents a background. All right, so if I wanted to clean that up later, I could go in with a little magic eraser. I like the thin ones, and just kind of blot it out. It would take it right out. Once you use the magic eraser, though, you can't paint over that section anymore because it really does ruin the surface of the paper. It takes off some of the sizing. Okay, so those are our three little designs for the top: a tree, a mug with a candy cane and some whipped cream, and our presents. Now we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back and do our bear, deer, and fox. All right, see you in just a moment. All right, we're back, and we're going to dive right into our little animal illustrations. These are so cute and fun. You probably see similar things all over, like different greeting cards and things like that, and decor. But simple illustrative shape, or simple illustrative animals, very simple shapes, and that's how we're going to break it down. So we're going to start with a polar bear over here. The head of our little polar bear is basically going to be a big blocky rectangle. All right, so I just created two sides here, and then a rounded top, but we're going to cover most of that up with a hat anyway. So on the sides of our rectangle are going to be these cute little rounded ears. Okay, I'm going to draw in a hat, so we're going to take care of that first. So I'm going to give it a white kind of fluff right here between the ears, and then we're just going to get rid of this little dome in the middle. And I kind of ran out of space on the top, so we'll make it a very floppy Santa hat that's bent over. There's his hat. Okay, so now the face. We're going to create a triangle here. This triangle is going to be in a gray color. The rest of the head is going to be white. We're going to put two eyes, one here, one here. And now inside this triangle, this is kind of representing the muzzle that sticks out. We are going to put his actual nose, which is going to be like a half circle shape, like that. And then for the mouth, we're going to come down and swoop out, give him a cute little smile. So there, it looks like a bear. But to make it a polar bear, we're going to make it white. If you want to round out the face, you could, and make it like a little fluffier of a face instead of that square. You could do that as well. All right, so let's give him a scarf, which is just a big rectangle that comes right up to his chin. Give him two tails, and that's kind of where our design is going to end. Okay. Okay, and then I forgot to include our to and froms here, so you have to add them up there. That is great, plenty of space. On this one, maybe two up here, You're gonna have to kind of right below and then from down here, and you can write underneath. Okay, so there's our bear. Let's paint him. I am gonna lighten up, especially because he's white, I'm gonna lighten up the edges. We are gonna paint them, but do. All right, so for this guy, we're just gonna use a very light wash of Payne's Gray. Very, very light. And we're gonna give him some edges, but not outlined edges, like soft, kind of like we did our snowman in the video before. Blend it out just enough to create a difference between the white of the paper and the white of the polar bear. All right, now with that being done, we're going to go a little darker Payne's Gray, and I'm going to paint the nose area. I'm not going to worry about painting over the nose and the mouth outlines because those are going to be very dark. Just going to paint this triangle. There we go. And then for the hat, for the white of the fluff, same thing. I'm going to kind of go around and just make some shadowy swirls along the bottom, a little bit on the interior. And as we paint color around it, it'll all kind of come together. Inside the ears, we're going to take Alizarin crimson, but make it very light. And just do like a pink inside our little polar bear ears here. Little rounded pinky spots. There we go. So now we have the inside of our ears. So let's do the hat and the scarf, and then we'll come in and finish with the details. And that's as simple as it is. So the hat, let's make it red. I know I was sticking with a more green theme up here, but I can't resist doing a Santa hat in red. So just laid down some good hearty color and then dipped my brush in water and blended it out. You can always go darker, you can always add more, but I want to give this a little bit of that watercolory, airy contrast feel. I don't want to just paint it flat. Then underneath here, I'm going to do there we go. And I forgot he has a little bobble at the end of his hat, a little white puff, so I got to give it a little gray so you can actually see it. And then the ear of the bear is here as well, so I'm going to give that a little gray around the bottom. Less is more. Keeping this very subtle. Same thing on this ear. I'm going to give it a little shadowing kind of along the bottom. Let it be whitest at the top. And maybe on the interior, like around the little, the pink inside. Okay, so that's great. Cute little hat. Let's make the scarf match. You could get crazy with your scarf and you could make white stripes on it or other colors or patterns or textures. We're going to stick with just red. But feel free to, you do you play. You could put down like a light red wash and then just darker red stripes on top. Paint the little tails here. There we go. All right, so he almost looks done. Almost, but we got to put in those final details and make them pop. So if you wanted to, you could do ink on the details. You could do the little eyes and the mouth in ink if you fear control with your brush. Totally fine. I'm going to use my brush for my size 4. I'm going to paint in my nose. My little bare nose. I'm going to paint in my little eyes. 1, 2. Pull off some paint. We have a little too much on there. I don't need it all. I'm going to give him some eyebrows. I feel like that makes them look really sweet. Some eyebrows, and then for the mouth, again, you could definitely switch to a rigger maybe, or a script liner brush if you're not confident in the tip of your paintbrush or your steady hand, and you could also use a pen. But there we go. There's our cute little polar bear. You could give him shoulders if you want. You don't have to end right there, and that would just be a little bit of Payne's gray kind of around where the body would be. Could probably just make it all gray under there in shadow. So if you wanted to end it off, you felt like it was truncated by the scarf there, just put a little gray underneath to give him a little body. Okay, there's our cute little polar bear. Let's move on to, which one do I want to do next? These are both a little trickier, but definitely doable, especially if you're drawing them out first. All right, let's do a reindeer. So for our reindeer, again, simple shapes. I'm going to start with his head, and that is going to be, and I'm going to start kind of off center here a little bit. Actually, no, I'm going to put it in the center, and the body will just be, all right, so let's put it right in the center. So the head is just kind of like an upside down gumdrop shape, like a rounded corner triangle upside down. So that is the head, and then the muzzle part of it, I'm going to draw a semicircle right there. It's kind of off a little bit. So this would be great to practice in your sketchbook beforehand, or draw it a couple times on just like copy paper before you get started if you're nervous. Simple shapes, but getting them all kind of in the right spot. So the nose, just like the other one, just a half circle, but this one is going to be a half circle facing up. So the rounded part is going to be at the top. Same thing with the mouth, cute little smiling mouth. And then the eyes up here. Again, you can put eyebrows on as well if you'd like. Now with this, the ears are a much different shape. They're more of this kind of leaf-like shape. You can also give them a center. And then we're going to put antlers on. So antlers are going to be just, they're going to both come up from the center here and come out to the sides. And then we're just going to put on a few prongs to the antlers. I think antlers are supposed to be symmetrical, like on an actual deer, but we're not going to worry about that too much. And then from these antlers, we are going to hang, I was deciding between Christmas lights or just a few ornaments. I think we're just going to hang a few like little baubles little round ornaments. Cute. Just to keep it simple. All right, and then the body is just going to be rounded on this side like this, boop, boop. But then also we're going to give him a little rump off to the side. Okay, and then in here, we'll just make it a lighter color. There we go. There's our deer. And again, we can do 2 up here. And you can write over top of these however you want. You could write over the painting. We can do from here. And put the names in there. All right, so let's paint this cute little guy. All right, so I'm going to go back to my, which color brown am I going to use? I think I'm going to use a combination of my raw sienna and my raw umber. So raw sienna is going to be like a wheat color, a yellowish brown wheat. And then my raw umber is a dark, cool brown. So they have a nice little contrast there. So for the head itself, I'm going to do raw umber. And you could do this in a really reddish toned brown. You can, any browns. You just want at least 2 contrasting browns. I mean, really, you could paint this reindeer purple if you really wanted to. Just 2 contrasting purples, 1 light, 1 dark. 1 lighter and 1 darker. And I do think actually this could use a little redness. I have also a burnt sienna. So raw sienna, burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is much more red. And I've added that. Just seeing the raw umber, I thought it was going to be a good choice, but it just seemed a little too dull to me. So I'm adding a wash of burnt sienna over top, which is a much redder brown. And my ears, I'm going to paint around the edges. Because we'll do the inside of the ears as like a pinky color as well. If you wanted to paint his nose red, you could do that. You could make Rudolph. I'm just going to go around this part here. And just because things are illustrations doesn't mean they have to be completely flat. We can add shadow and shading to things. So I'm going to paint this body kind of flat right now, but I'm going to add some additional color. Especially in watercolor. And now I'm going to take my raw sienna and I'm going to paint inside here. I'm going to go over the nose because again, that's going to be black or Payne's gray. Unless you want to paint your nose red or pink to be Rudolph. I am going to go inside those ears again. The alizarin crimson, just lightening it up a lot. A little splash of pink there. And then as that's drying, let's give it, we're just going to do a little shadow here. Boop, boop, boop. And a little shadow under the chin. We're going to finish letting that dry so we can put on our details, and let's jump up to our antlers. You can do these. I'm going to do them in brown as well. So this one has a lot of brown on it. Again, this would be a great use of a script liner brush if you have one. But my trusty little size 4 here is pretty good. Still relatively new brush. Which to me is about a year old. I guess it depends how much you use your brushes or a particular brush. All right. And then for my little baubles on the top, let's do red and green. But really you could do any color you want. I'm going to make them a little bigger, just so we really see those splashes of color. And I'm just going to keep them round. You could do fun little ornament shapes, but this is really tiny. Just pulling a little color out so they're not too dark. And then connect them. Again, this would be a great place to use a pen to kind of connect with these strings. I'm just going to use my brush. Okay, so I think we're dry enough in there. If you're worried about it, again, you can hit it with the heat tool. Really quick to get it fully there. So let's paint in our little rounded nose. And our little mouth. And then we're going to do the eyes. There we go. Now I can see them again. I'm going to make them a little bigger. And also going to give him little eyebrows. There we go. Cute little reindeer. You could give this reindeer a scarf as well if you wanted, or other embellishments or decorations. Go for it. All right, last but not least, we're going to do our fox. And this one is the trickiest for me to draw. Again, simple shapes, but they do kind of come together. They break my brain a little bit. We're going to put a hat on this guy as well. Maybe I'll just do like a regular winter hat. Okay, so for our fox, we're going to start with a rounded dome. I'm already having issues. I'm going to have to just scooch my book over a little bit so I can get my hand fully in there. A rounded dome, and then at the edges, we're going to swoop out, and then right? So he has, it's almost like a little ghost here, a little ghost shaped face. But we want to give that like that bushy feel on the sides. We really want to accentuate that fox nose and the shape of the fox face. So we're going to just draw and then at the very end of this is going to be our nose for our fox. I'm going to give him an eye here, an eye here. Oh, the eyes are definitely not level. An eye here. And then we're going to add whiskers for that foxy, whiskery face. And then for our fox ears, those, of course, are going to be big, pointed ears. And should we put a hat on him? Or maybe just a scarf on our fox. And then we're going to give him a big scarf under his little foxy nose. So you could leave a hat off, you could put a hat on. I'm going to put on just a little rounded. I'm going to cut off this right here, just a little bit of the top of the head and the ear. And we're going to do just a rounded hat with a little puff ball on the top. There we go. Looks kind of like a French fox. Okay, we're going to lighten up these lines in here. We'll decide on colors as we go. We're going to definitely put the hat in front of the ear, the big ears. There we go. And just lighten everything up with our kneaded eraser. And then we're going to get painting. And we're going to need some orange for this one. Not something you see a lot in holiday paintings, but when you're painting a fox, you need some orange. All right, so let's clean off some of this palette. Just going to dip my paper towel right in water. Now the orange you choose will kind of set the mood and the tone. So if you want more of a vintagey or a muted tone, you're not going to want to use like an orange straight out of. So like I have a transparent Pyrrol orange. This is super bright. You could make your own orange. Always remember the opposite of orange is blue. So anytime you introduce any blue tones to it, it's going to mute the color and make it more earth toned, if that makes sense. But if you wanted to make your own orange, and if you didn't have one in your palette, you could use a super warm yellow. So if you have a Diarylide, a Gamboge yellow, and you could add a little alizarin crimson. I like alizarin crimson because it does make a more earth toned orange. I'm just going to mix these together. Because alizarin crimson has a blue tone to it. So let's bring that yellow in. And if that is still too bright and orangey for you, take a little bit of blue that you have. So you could use ultramarine. I have a cobalt here that I could add to it. The type of blue you add will definitely affect how if it makes it more of a gray orange or a brownish orange. So I used a little cobalt and we have a very muted orange now. And again, mix in more red if you want it more red, more yellow, and just keep going until you kind of have the color that you want. All right, so I'm going to start by painting. I'm going to switch my brush really quick before that dries. There we go. By painting darkest along the top. And we're going to paint in this triangle that we drew here that created the nose, and leaving the outsides white and fluffy. We'll add a little Payne's gray to give them some shape. All the way down to the nosy area. Add a little more color up here, but really leaning into that kind of watercolor feel so it doesn't feel flat. A little wet on wet. Perfect. And then for my ears, I'm going to go around the outside like this. Now I'm trying to remember, is there a black tip on the ears? I'm going to have to look that up. Actually bring this down, make this more rounded on the inside of the ear. The top is pointy, but the inside will be more rounded, and we'll put like a pink color in there. Actually going to connect it to the top here. All right, so we have the orange of our fox, and I'm actually going to do underneath the scarf. I'm going to create a little body for him. And I just keep rinsing my brush off and making it lighter and lighter and white, almost white in the center. A little tinge of orange for his little body. Okay, and then let's paint in, I guess, the hat. We'll do the hat and the scarf. What color goes best? You know, we could make this fox just wintry, and we could do blue. Blue and orange are opposite colors. They stand out really well against each other. Or I could keep it in the theme. Let's do green. But you know what? Let's do like a really blue green. So I'm going to add phthalo blue to this. It's going to be a turquoisey color. Because why not? But I think that'll go really well. It's not quite blue, opposite color, but it's a very blue-green, so it's still going to pop really nicely against the orange. Just hoping all my orange is dry. And orange is a very warm color, and this is a very cool color. So that always helps with contrast. Just going to throw in, this is a very fluffy hat or puffy hat, so it's going to have wrinkles and divots. So I'm just dropping in color so it doesn't look completely flat. So there's the hat. We're going to put the puff ball on top in a moment, and we'll do the same with the scarf. We'll make them match. You don't always have to make your scarf match. I'm going to go around the nose because this is a pretty dark green color. I don't want it to interfere with that pop of black on the nose. You can see as you paint around things, it starts to make things kind of take form and shape. Oh, I like this color combination. Glad I didn't go with traditional. All right, so let's get into our Payne's gray a little bit in the white area. Now, again, we want it to be very light and subtle, but I am going to give my little foxy some shape and form around the edges. I'm going to do a little shadow kind of in the center of this side. There we go. Let that dry. The contrast of the black is really going to make that look more white again. Let's do a little puff ball up here. So just kind of around the edges, a little bit of the interior, leaving some white spaces. So we have our little white puff on the top of our hat. While that's drying, we can do our pink inside our ears again. So alizarin crimson, just really watered down. And I think I want to go a little bit darker. We'll just drop a little color in the edges there. There we go. pink and orange are so close to each other. It's not as contrasty as maybe you would want it. All right, so let's go back in with our Payne's Gray. We can definitely do our nose. I'm definitely not going to do those whiskers with my brush. I will either use a pen, and my green was still a little damp, just enough to make that edge soft. So annoyed. But I'm not going to freak out. Because again, this is my sketchbook. I'll go back in there and fluff that up in a minute. All right, so I'm going to hit it with my heat tool really quick just to make sure that doesn't happen again. There we go. It's always nice to have that handy. Let's put in our eyes. Little foxy eyes. And then, like I said before, here, I can go back in now. Make it darker along the bottom. Leave it a little bit more gray at the top. Gives a little contrast. So you can definitely do these in pen. I am going to take my script liner or rigger to do these whiskers because it's just easy. Look how easy that was. It just really lends itself to fine lines. It's hard to make a thick line. And I'm just going to put a few little dots here. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. Oh, we can give him eyebrows too. There we go. Our cute little foxy. If you want to go in and add more contrast or shadows, you definitely can. Like on my hat here, I'm going to make it even darker at the bottom with some like wrinkles or puffs. Same color, just another layer. So you don't always have to add black or gray for shadows. It's the same color, just more of it and darker, more saturated. And with my scarf, I can do a little darkening under the nose. I gotta switch brushes. And at the edge here, we can also give our little tails a little separation, a little shadow. Actually, the bottom one would be darker than the top one because it's underneath. There we go. So our cute little foxy, oh, she's so adorable. She or he, I'm not sure. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this next set of our holiday gift tags. These could also be used for all kinds of different decorations or cards if you prefer to do like a full-size card. These are just small 3x3 tags that you could definitely use. And I was saying in my last video, if you spend a lot of time on these and you don't want to waste them as like a throwaway thing, they're definitely nice enough. Do them on nice paper. Use them for like your immediate family or close family and friends where after they open their gift and they see their gift tag, you can actually take it back and reuse it next year. Obviously for the same person because it's going to have a name on it. But then it almost becomes, especially if it's like your immediate family, it becomes like their gift tag and kind of like a personalized mug or something like that that you bring out every year. And that's their thing. They recognize it, they know it's theirs before they even read their name on it. And that can be a lot of fun too. So I'm just adding the to and from on these. Don't forget to check out the description to links to supplies and materials. I always get a lot of questions about supplies and materials. They are all in the description. And you can learn more about them. You can find most of them at your local art stores. The links online do go to online art stores or to Amazon. They are affiliate links, just so you know. So I do get a small commission if you do order from that link in particular. And this one up here. But again, like I said, you don't have to order them from there. You can just learn about the product and then go find them at your favorite local art store or order them from right online. That is always very helpful. There we go. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for following along with me. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. If you're new here, you can check back for future watercolor journal pages, whether they be Christmas, holiday, winter themed or not. There will probably definitely be some more holiday, Christmas themed ones. Winter for sure coming up. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks so much, y'all. Take care and happy painting.